also know that there have been infringements on free speech that actually affect not just the British. Of course, what the British do in their own country is up to them, but also affect American technology companies and by extension American citizens. So
Jeremy Clarkson has never been one to hold back, but this time he's gone straight for the jugular. After Keir Starmer's painfully awkward meeting with Donald Trump, where the UK Prime Minister tried way too hard to impress and ended up embarrassing himself, Clarkson tore into him like never before. In one of his most brutal takedowns, he even said he'd rather have Vladimir Putin running Britain than Starmer. That's not just frustration, that's pure outrage. But what exactly did Starmer do to trigger such a savage response?
So would you invite Keir to your pub, Keir Starmer, the Prime Minister?
No, he's banned. He's the first person to be banned. He's actually on a board in the...
Jeremy Clarkson is never one to keep his opinions to himself, and this time he set his sights on Keir Starmer. The former Top Gear host is known for his brutal honesty and sharp tongue, but his latest comments about the UK Prime Minister have taken things to another level. For Clarkson, this isn't just about politics, it's about leadership, honesty, and the direction the country is heading. And from the looks of it, he's not alone in his frustration.
Europe, and the only person celebrating that will be Vladimir Putin.
Yeah.
And I think one thing that will become...
The outrage started when Clarkson fired off a comment that left people stunned. He claimed he'd rather have Vladimir Putin running the UK than Keir Starmer. That's not just a casual dig, that's a statement designed to make people stop in their tracks. Clarkson doesn't support Putin, but the fact that he made such a dramatic comparison shows just how little faith he has in Starmer. To him, the UK leader is weak, dishonest, and completely disconnected from the real issues facing British people.
Said, I'm surrounded by farmers and plasterers and brickies and butchers, and all I hear all day long is that there is too much immigration. He said, but if they say this out loud or if they go on a march, they are told by the London elite that they are far-right extremists or racist thugs.
A lot of Brits seem to agree. Many feel that Starmer promised change but has delivered the same old political nonsense. Rising costs, heavy taxes, and policies that feel more performative than practical have left people fed up. And Clarkson, he's saying what a lot of them are already thinking.
And I think, we all make mistakes in life, and I think it's time for them to say, you know what, we've cocked this one up a bit and back down. That's my view.
Clarkson's anger isn't just about one bad meeting or a few questionable policies. It's about a pattern of behaviour that he believes is misleading the public while trying to impress world leaders. The meeting with Trump was supposed to be a diplomatic success, but to Clarkson and many others, it felt like Starmer was putting on a show. The attempt to bring up Winston Churchill, a figure Starmer hasn't exactly championed in the past, seemed like an empty gesture, designed to score points rather than reflect real values. The issue of free speech is another sore spot. Starmer confidently told Trump that the UK has a strong commitment to free expression, but Clarkson isn't buying it. He's pointed out that under Starmer's government, people have been arrested over social media posts, online censorship has increased, and protests have faced harsher restrictions. The words don't match the actions, and Clarkson sees that as pure hypocrisy.
If the British people are in Ukraine and they get attacked, I've always found about the British, they don't need much help. They can take care of themselves.
Keir Starmer's meeting with Donald Trump was supposed to be a big diplomatic win. It was a chance for the UK Prime Minister to strengthen trade relations, build a connection with one of the most influential political figures in the world, and prove himself as a strong leader on the global stage. Instead, it turned into an awkward spectacle that had people shaking their heads. The plan seemed simple enough. Starmer met Trump to secure a better trade deal between the US and the UK. To add a personal touch, he even handed Trump a letter from King Charles, hoping it would make an impression. It was the kind of move designed for headlines, Starmer standing beside Trump, delivering a letter from British royalty, all while discussing the future of UK-US relations. On paper, It sounded like a moment that would boost Starmer's credibility on the international stage.
Our teams are going to be talking about how we make sure that deal sticks, is lasting and enforced. So our teams will be talking about that.
But that's not how it played out. Trump barely acknowledged Starmer's presence. Instead of a powerful exchange between two world leaders, the whole interaction felt lopsided, with Starmer trying too hard to win Trump's approval. At times, it seemed like Trump was just tolerating the meeting rather than engaging in it. The energy in the room was clear. Trump held all the power, and Starmer was struggling to keep up. Things got even more awkward when Starmer brought up Winston Churchill. He probably thought this was a smart move, considering Churchill is a figure Trump admires. The problem? Starmer himself had previously removed Churchill's portrait from Downing Street, a move that hadn't gone unnoticed. Trump, being Trump, wasn't about to let something like that slide. He knew exactly what Starmer was doing, playing to the audience, trying to align himself with a leader he hadn't exactly championed in the past.
I thought he was doing the right thing by buttering up President Trump on Thursday in the White House.
The entire meeting felt like a staged performance rather than a real diplomatic discussion. Starmer was acting as if he and Trump had always seen eye to eye, but it was obvious that wasn't the case. Trump has a way of reading people, and he could see right through Starmer's act. Instead of looking like a confident leader, Starmer ended up coming across as someone desperate to impress. Jeremy Clarkson's brutal takedown of Kier Starmer didn't just come out of nowhere. It was the kind of frustration that had been bubbling under the surface for a long time. And when Clarkson spoke up, millions of people felt like he was saying exactly what they were thinking. It wasn't just about the Trump meeting, it was about the bigger picture.
Mention Canada. I think you're trying to find a divide between us that doesn't exist. We're the closest of nations, and we had very good discussions today, but we didn't discuss Canada.
Thank you.
The moment Clarkson called out Starmer for his weak leadership, social media exploded. People from all sides of the political spectrum chimed in, and the consensus was clear. Starmer's meeting with Trump felt more like a publicity stunt than real diplomacy. Even those who aren't Trump supporters found the whole thing embarrassing. It was as if Starmer had walked into the room hoping for a powerful moment, only to end up looking out of place and awkward. Trump barely took him seriously, and Starmer's attempts to appear confident fell flat. Clarkson's words sparked a firestorm because they cut straight to the point. People are tired of politicians who care more about looking good than actually getting things done. The UK is dealing with real problems, rising costs, high taxes, and a government that feels increasingly disconnected from everyday people. Watching Starmer fumble through a meeting with Trump while pretending everything was going smoothly only added to the frustration. Across the UK, there's a growing sense that Starmer isn't living up to expectations. He came into power with big promises, but for many, nothing feels different. The economy is still struggling, public services are still a mess, and ordinary people are feeling the squeeze. Instead of focusing on fixing these problems, Starmer seems more interested in political theatrics, shaking hands, making grand statements, and trying to impress world leaders. Jeremy Clarkson isn't just upset about Keir Starmer's meeting with Donald Trump, his frustrations go far beyond that. For months, he's been calling out what he sees as Starmer's failures as Prime Minister, hitting on everything from free speech issues to the struggles of British farmers and the way the government handles immigration. He's not just throwing out opinions for the sake of it. He genuinely believes that Starmer is taking the country in the wrong direction. And judging by how many people are agreeing with him, he's not alone in thinking that. The topic of free speech has been one of Clarkson's biggest concerns. Starmer has talked about how Britain values free expression, but Clarkson and many others aren't buying it. Under Starmer's leadership, there's been a noticeable increase in censorship, especially online. People have been arrested for things they've posted on social media, and protest laws have become stricter. The idea that Britain is a country where people can freely speak their minds is starting to feel like a myth. Clarkson sees this as a major double standard. How can Starmer tell Trump and the world that the UK supports free speech when his own government is making it harder for people to speak out? Then there's the issue of farmers, something Clarkson has been deeply passionate about ever since he started Clarkson's Farm. His show opened a lot of people's eyes to just how hard it is to be a farmer in the UK, and he's been vocal about the challenges they face. According to him, Starmer's government isn't making things any easier. High taxes, complicated regulations, and constant red tape are putting British farmers under massive financial pressure. To make things worse, instead of focusing on protecting farmland, Starmer's administration has been pushing for expensive housing projects in rural areas. The more countryside that gets turned into housing developments, the less space there is for farming, and Clarkson believes that in the long run, this is going to hurt the entire country. The way the government handles immigration has been another sore spot for Clarkson. He's never been against immigration itself, but he's made it clear that he thinks British citizens, especially farmers and pensioners, are being pushed aside while newcomers are given priority. He's criticised the government for spending huge amounts of money on hotels and financial support for immigrants, while hard-working Brits are struggling to pay their bills. Farmers are losing their land. Pensioners are choosing between heating and eating. And yet, there always seems to be enough money to support people who have just arrived in the country. To Clarkson, this isn't about being anti-immigration. It's about fairness.
When I met President Trump in the White House to strengthen our relationship with America.
Jeremy Clarkson has always been known for his strong opinions, but over the years, he's become more than just a car guy. What started as a career in motoring journalism and television has evolved into something much bigger. He's now one of the loudest and most influential voices in the UK when it comes to politics and social issues. Whether it's his fiery newspaper columns, his outspoken social media posts, or his widely popular show, Clarkson's Farm, he's no longer just talking about cars. He's talking about the country, and people are listening. Some might wonder why anyone should take political opinions from a former Top Gear host seriously, but the truth is that Clarkson has a way of cutting through the noise that few others do. He doesn't speak like a politician. He doesn't sugarcoat things or dance around topics to keep people happy. He just says what he thinks, and more often than not, it's exactly what many people are already feeling, but are too afraid to say out loud. That kind of brutal honesty is rare, especially at a time when politicians seem more concerned with public relations than real leadership. One of the biggest reasons Clarkson's words carry so much weight is because he's relatable. He doesn't talk in scripted sound bites, and he doesn't pretend to be anything he's not. He's wealthy and successful, sure, but he also understands what ordinary people go through. His experience running a farm has given him a first-hand look at how government policies affect real people, not just the elite sitting in Parliament. And when he calls out politicians like Kier Starmer, it's not coming from a place of political bias. It's coming from frustration, the same kind that millions of Brits feel every day. So, what are your thoughts on this? Let us know in the comments below.